Assalamu alaikum. My name is Gregory Walid Cavalli. This is the second broadcast in our Ramadan series. I'm here to tell you a little bit about an experience I had yesterday. I was invited to speak to a group of Christians who wanted to learn about Islam. I'm pretty much aiming to teach people about Islam directly from the Quran. I don't use secondary sources. I cite the verses that Allah sent down in His book. Those of you who are Muslims know what I'm talking about. Those of you who want to learn about Islam, that's why we're here. When I gave that speech, I won't even call it a speech. When I gave that class, I very quickly just gave them an overview of how I came to Islam and what my story was, which was a lot of years ago. I then opened up the class to questions and answers because I knew people were going to want to ask the tough questions. You all know what I mean by the tough questions. I will start right off with the one lady there who had to ask me. And she had read Rumi, the poet, beautiful poetry from our history. She said, I've read Rumi. How did we get from Rumi to 9/11? This is an oft asked question. I'm here to try to answer it. Why am I answering that question instead of teaching you about Islam right off the top? It's because if you're not already in Islam, it's going to be a question that's near the top of your mind. Here we go. You all know the image. We all saw them, not just that one image we saw. Many people die that day in a surrealistic morning that seemed to last just a minute and seemed to last for a week. That day changed America. We are not the same America that we had before that. Those of you who have been born since 2001 don't understand. Those who were there, saw it all happen, and remember what America was like before that, know the difference that it has made. How did we get there? What brought that on? What made Muslims do that? Very shortly after that, our beloved President Bush Jr. said, they hate us for our freedoms. No, Muslims do not hate you for your freedoms. Those folks that were running that operation had a history with the American government that I'm going to explain to you now as best I can, and I will provide the links and background material so you know that you're being told the truth.
Hi, Lucky. How are you?
Represent Dr. Rabban.
How are you? Well, it's good to see you. Please. Good morning. Good morning. Pleasure to see you too.
And Mr. Gailani
See you.
and Mr. Ishaq.
Good to see you.
Testing one, yeah.
Obviously, that was not George Bush Jr. That was his father's boss, Ronald Reagan. It was a lot of years earlier than 9/11 of 2001. This was 1986. The Soviet Union is now beginning to leave Afghanistan, and Ronald Reagan is welcoming the leaders of Afghanistan into office to see all these photo ops happen and celebrate the fact that we helped them get rid of the Soviet occupation. There's a story behind that too, but that meeting in the White House was the beginning of the end also of what was called the Soviet Union. Within a few years, it would be so bankrupt from its war in Afghanistan that it would fall. This was part of the game. Let's scroll back a few more years. If you didn't catch that, it's simple. We managed to trick the Soviet Union into thinking that a mild invasion of the capital of Afghanistan would be a good idea and easy. They already had friends there. They already knew the lay of the land. They had consultants among the military. They could walk in, take over, and own the place. That's what they thought. That's what they tried to do. The result, as you know, was not so simple. The reason of taking you back to these initial events, the fact that we, the American government, arranged subtly for the Soviet Union to start that 10-year-long war in Afghanistan. We did that to bankrupt the Soviet Union. It was just a chess move in our Cold War game. The result was a lot of dead people, soldiers and civilians. You can read one of the books I will provide the links for so you will know how bad it was. I also have a link to the article that you just saw so you can read the whole thing. Brzezinski was up to his nose in that stuff. So to recap, we started the war. It looked like we started the war. The Soviet Union thinks they started the war, but we started the war. We then let the war go on. We let the war go on. We let the war go on. We provide lots of aid to the Taliban and other operatives in Afghanistan who fight against the evil Soviet empire. Lots of weapons, lots of tanks, etc., etc., etc. Food aid, textbooks. We'll get back to the textbooks here in a minute. We will provide aid to those people until one day the Soviet Union did something we didn't really expect. They folded up the house and went home. There was no more Soviet Union. It broke up. There was no longer any reason for us to be in Afghanistan, so we left too. What could possibly go wrong? There's a part of me tempted to go steal a clip from Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, because Hollywood is a good way of showing in high speed what happens when you try to pull God into a human war. You got Nazis with their faces melting. Would have made a great clip right here. But I'm not doing this for special effects. The idea, though, is exactly what's going on in the story I've been telling you. The United States took the word of God and they manipulated it and they corrupted it and they gave it out as textbooks to children to make sure they fought the United States' war as much as hard as they could. They wanted those kids to thinking they're serving God when they're really just serving the Cold War. This is what we did. We played with the Word of God. Even if you personally don't think the Quran is the Word of God, because I'm talking to Christians here, substitute your sacred text and think about how the Creator would feel if they took the Torah or the Gospel and they twisted it around in ways that would get kids to go out and kill the enemy. If you're a believer, ask yourself, is God going to ignore that? Personally, I don't think he will. Is he going to send down lightning bolts? No, but he'll clear some paths. Does that mean that the attacks in New York by the people who we betrayed in Afghanistan were obeying God? No, they were getting revenge. But I don't think it would have been as easy as it was if somebody didn't move the obstacles out of the way. Is that Rumi? Is that Islam? Is that from the Quran? No, you won't find crashing planes in the Quran. There are a bunch of silly memes trying to quote the Quran saying that when the events happened. But I've given you the background. Where did the hate come from? Where did the revenge come from? It came from what we did to the Afghani people.